As smartphone production costs plummet, OEMs have a brand new affordable category to consider and corner. With HTC's future on the line, let's see how its latest entry fares with strong value-driven offerings on the rise. I'm Mark Bursteiner with TechnoBuffalo, and this is the HTC Desire 626. Just as a quick disclaimer, I reviewed the device for 5 days. The HTC Desire 626 is a budget device through and through. Everything from the build quality to the screen to the internals, they all just scream budget. So let's start with that body. The 626 has an entirely plastic exterior. It's got this kind of soft, smooth finish. Feels kind of nice in the hand to hold. It's got kind of like nice, soft, round corners. The form factor is really, really slim, but it does actually feel sturdy. There's like not even a little bit of flex. There's even this kind of like somewhat pearlescent finish on the white areas on the outside. Obviously, not all of the devices are white, but this one does have it. And I hesitate to say that it makes it look a little more premium, but it definitely does give the impression that the device is a little bit better than it actually is. On the left side here, you're going to find a flap to get at that SIM slot and the micro SD card, which is capable of cards up to 200 gigs in size. And on the right, you're going to find that kind of gushy power key that you're never quite sure if you've actually pressed, and of course, the way too high for my thumb volume rocker up here on the top. Underneath the hood, we'll talk about some specs really quick. This is running the Snapdragon 210. It's a quad-core processor clocked at 1.1 gigahertz, and Qualcomm says that this is the 4G processor for everyone. So any device that needs 4G connectivity, it's like their modern low-end processor. It's got 16 gigs of onboard storage, a gig of RAM, and a 2,000 milliamp hour battery, and it is going to be available for $200 off contract. The camera on the back is an 8 megapixel shooter, and the front's got a 5 megapixel camera. They're both about as good as you can really expect them to be. The HTC camera app is easy enough to use, and it's quicker than I really expected it to be, but the results are pretty predictably rough. We've got really noisy, kind of washed out photos and low light photos that are just about grainy enough to sand that table you've been meaning to refinish. This isn't going to replace your DSLR or even your pocket point and shoot if you, for some reason, still have one of those, but it is perfectly serviceable for all the Snapchats that kids are doing these days. I did have a really positive experience with the battery on this thing. It's a 2,000 milliamp hour battery, and it's going to keep you cranking for quite a few days with just a little bit of light usage. Overnight, in standby, it only dropped by about 5%, and it's been making it full days with me with about 40% left in the tank, and that's just with normal, moderate day-to-day usage. Between the stock GPU, it's got a really low resolution display, and the low power Snapdragon 210, it's really not terribly surprising how long the 626 can stretch 2,000 milliamp hours. Plus, like I said, that 210 even supports fast charging, so it is definitely the modern low-end processor. So even if you do run out of juice, you've got fast charging on this thing to charge it right back up. The screen, though, is really what betrays the 626 as a 100% budget device. This is a 5-inch display running a 720 resolution, and it's an LCD. That only gives it a PPI of 293, and believe you me, it shows in just about every pixel. I haven't been this immediately put off by a display in quite some time. The colors are really, really washed out. The resolution is incredibly low, and the text is rendered in, honestly, it's borderline offensive. In most areas, the text looks like it's had like a gray stroke applied to the outside of it. It's actually kind of confusing, honestly, because it doesn't even seem to happen everywhere, but when it happens, text is really, really difficult to look at, almost as if it's in the uncanny valley of fonts. It feels like someone just took the screen and turned sharpening up all the way to 11, and for me, it's easily the worst aspect of the entire device. But let's talk about the software really quick. The 626 is sporting Sense 7.0, which is the latest and least egregious HTC spin on Android, and while it's certainly more toned down than older offerings, it's not quite as far backed off as I would like from Android, as even, for example, TouchWiz has backed off from Android, or even better, Motorola has backed off from Android. It's definitely an HTC device, and everything from the app drawer to Blink Feed to the incessant notifications asking you for your usage info for Blink Feed and things like that, they're going to make sure that you don't forget it. It does run smoothly enough, though, and despite unholy amounts of AT&T bloatware, it never really harshed my experience so badly that it couldn't be mostly alleviated by an icon pack and Nova Launcher. Despite its less than ideal screen, the 626 is ultimately a totally serviceable device for the price. This is exactly the kind of device I could totally see buying a teenager. It's kind of crazy, in fact, how far we've come and how inexpensive smartphones can be these days. You know, this thing's just $200 and this would have been a flagship a few years ago. If I had a 16-year-old who were getting his or her first smartphone, this is exactly the kind of device that I would be looking for. It's nothing special, but it's a starter device, you know, and it is inexpensive enough that if it were to get lost or destroyed or stolen, that it wouldn't really break the bank to have it replaced. Unless you're shopping for your kids or looking for a cheap burner device, I really can't think of a reason to seriously consider or recommend the 626, especially as strong contenders like the OnePlus 2 and Zenfone 2 start creeping dangerously close to the budget range of prices. If you really need to save somewhere in the vicinity of $150, I'm not sure you're not better off picking up like a flagship from last year or even a Moto G, which is actually the same price as the 626 off contract. What do you guys think? I still don't know that a budget device really ought to be making this many compromises. Like I said, the Moto G is a very good device for the price. And as I mentioned, the Zenfone 2 and the OnePlus 2 are both getting dangerously close to those budget territories. So let me know what you think. Is this budget category just getting smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually we're just using devices that are all about the value? Let me know in the comments. And of course, you can tweet me at Mark B. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a like. There's a subscribe button there for you too if you want to use it. And I will catch you guys in the next video.